it's not all about winning. Kind of wanted to jump into something specific, especially if you're looking to buy or sell real estate in 2023. I think this is going to become super critical, and it's something that happened to me actually just last week. It's not all about winning, just that concept right there. We're in the middle of a transaction. It actually is going to close fairly soon. And why I felt it was important to talk about this is because I really think it's important for buyers, sellers, and even agents to understand the concept of a real estate transaction and our duty as real estate agents especially. We have a fiduciary duty. We're just an agency to a transaction. And we can't get emotional. We can't get involved in the specifics of what's going on. During a transaction of which I actually represent a client, the other agent said specifically, "I cannot let you win." That's the quote. That's the quote that was provided. And when you take that information and share it with a client, and you share it even within my own office, everyone was taken back because this isn't a competition. Real estate's not a competition, and even more so, it's not a competition for me as an agent or anything of that nature. The transaction's about a buyer and a seller, and it's my job and my expertise to negotiate the transaction on behalf of my client so that my client doesn't get emotional or my client doesn't become vested in a certain way that doesn't allow them to think in a negative format or cause them to do something they normally wouldn't do outside of their normal day-to-day operation. So this goes down in this conversation, and I was completely taken back and I became silent. There was probably about a 10-minute diatribe that was provided to me with regards to what was going on. It took me a while to really think about how to respond. And I didn't really have anything specific because I clearly knew right then and there that I was dealing with someone that felt that they had to win. They had to have one up. They had to have something that made them look better in front of their client. We run into this all the time as agents. Maybe you run into it with your friends. I used to call them one-uppers when I was a kid. We had friends in high school and things of that nature, even in college. We had buddies that would show up. You might not see them for a while, and they'd have a one-upper story. Well, there's agents that are like that as well. And what was interesting is that in this particular sequence, you couldn't solve the problem. The problem couldn't be solved by the agent. No matter what was going to happen, help was going to have to be provided. People need to understand, and I think it's not only a semblance for a real estate transaction, but it's also about life. And I think that's why it struck such a hard chord with me. And some things have gone on recently. There was an NFL game that ended up being canceled. It's been amazing to watch how human nature starts to kick in and we all work together for a common cause. Now, I'm using extremes here. Obviously, we're going from an NFL game all the way down to a real estate transaction, and I know that's extreme, but I think it shows the simplicity of how life can be, how fragile it can be, and even though we may get involved emotionally in a transaction, whether you're a buyer and you're buying a home or looking to buy a home in the next year, or you're a home seller, you have to think about it from the bigger perspective. I have been practicing real estate for over 25 years now, and I have a common conclusion, and my dad taught it to me at a very young age when I first got in the industry. Everybody's got to win so that you can come out of a transaction and everybody feels that the money that was spent, the money that was paid to buy it, the money that was received once they sold the home, everybody involved feels like they all won. It can't be one-sided, can't be one person, because those are never positive things. That's not a positive environment to be in. When this really went down, it provided me an avenue really for self-reflection in my business, self-reflection in how I'm helping my clients, and really self-reflection over the 25 plus years of what I've done. And the reason is I am constantly evaluating not only what I do on a daily basis, but what I've done in the past and how I can do it better. Because of things that were taught to me at a very young age in this industry, you want to make sure that you're continuing and manifesting those things as they continue to work, but applying new principles, new technology, new anything that has come out can help support not only yourself and your business, but also your clients. In this particular case, when it's not all about winning, especially from one particular customer's side, I did a lot of evaluation in that particular sequence. And I picked up the phone, I called my personal client at the time, and we went through everything. I went through it in such detail because I knew exactly what my client wanted. And there's always time frames involved and things of that nature. And a lot of people's reactions come down to a couple different things. Either lack of education because they don't understand, but probably one of the biggest ones, even more so, because anyone can look a lot of things up on the internet these days. But the lack of ability. So even though I go and look something up, I don't have the ability to solve that problem because it's out of my hands. It could be a contractor that has to get work done in a timely fashion. It might have to be that you're relying on a third-party vendor to be able to get a file approved, or you need a document signed by someone, then you can't control it even though it's been sent. And you can see the stress level start to pick up in certain sequences in a transaction, in life. Maybe you need your child to do something, or let's say they're not home in a certain time and your sense of awareness peaks up, your stress level peaks up. I know it happens around my house, but it's one of those things where I think that if you can read between the lines and look at it very specifically, you understand that the person on the other end, instead of asking for help, becomes challenging. And that's okay. There are people out there that's their way of dealing with stress. And I think that over the years, what has established and come to the core with me, that if you can solve people's problems, and it's not only my clients, and that's what I've learned after 25 years, is that sometimes it's not the clients that we are problem solving for. Sometimes it's other agents. Sometimes it's a vendor. Sometimes it's a title officer. So there's a lot of parties to a real estate transaction, especially in California. Not everyone can solve the problem. I think what really separates not only fantastic business people, but especially in the real estate industry, people that can solve some very high complex problems really, really go far in this industry because they can keep it simple. And they definitely don't operate as I've got to win type mentality. Because if you share, you get out of this mindset of scarcity. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And I've really buckled down, especially for 2023, because these are going to be some challenging times in real estate. The market, for the first time, is doing something different than it's done for 10 years. If you operate in that scarcity type mentality, things become difficult because you can't think rationally. You can't think from the perspective of providing service, quality service at that. And especially you can get into that you're not providing the finite details of what would be right at the time. You might be in a situation that you give someone advice or you provide guidance to someone and it's not actually the right thing, but because at that time it was more beneficial to either you or the situation to just provide that little step that solved the equation at the time, or that solved the solution. But in reality, if someone was honest and someone actually gave the difficult information, whether it be to the client, to your friend, to your spouse, to your loved one, things would have been so much clearer and actually been easier. Provide some insights as to how you can handle those situations a little bit different. I come from a non-scarcity mentality. I don't believe if you work correctly in this business, especially right now, you need to have that type of mentality going into 2023. I believe that abundance is upon us. I believe that abundance can come to not only my clients, whether you're a first-time home buyer, you're an investor, or even my sellers. There's still abundance in this marketplace. And there's abundance even from an agent's perspective, because if you give and you share and you provide service, you would be amazed at how much that comes back. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I truly believe that to the core. This is not a game. It's not something that's a competition that we need to have a fight or any type of challenge over. We've gotten to a point, not only in our industry, but also at a point in our lives where truly human nature needs to kick in, and we all need to have awareness of each other and of what the common goal is at the time. In my case, it comes down every day to real estate transactions. And what's the goal of the real estate transaction? For a buyer to buy a home and for a seller to sell a home. And they have to agree to terms that they have in place. But the reality is sometimes emotions can get involved, and that can jade your negotiations and how your thought process think. And that's so true that I don't even represent myself when I buy and sell real estate. I always have a third party represent me. And I think that's crucial because it provides the avenue of someone else's opinion so that you can take the emotion out of it. And in this particular case, I didn't have that type situation last week where the agent is actually vested in the transaction, and it became clearly obvious that emotion had now overrun some thought processes. But that's okay. We've solved it. We're moving on. We solved it because we solve the problem that was creating the stress at the time for the agent in the transaction. They couldn't solve it themselves and they didn't have solutions. But once it was obvious what the issue was, I am in the problem solving business, and it was actually very easy. And lo and behold, everything is moving forward fine. But I think that the point of today's is more specifically that if you're looking to buy or sell real estate in 2023, just remember that it's not a game in which you need to win. It's a game that you need to get into, and it's not about the competition. Get into the game and figure out what's right for you at the time. And buyers and sellers in this marketplace, everybody has to win. Everybody has to agree to agree. And it's such an opportunity to purchase real estate right now, because obviously I just talked about how we're in a different shift that we've never seen in the past 10 years. So there are going to be opportunities, but the amount of inventory that's in our marketplace and things of that nature really serve well for sellers. And sellers also have to be on the same page with that, where they have to understand that if all the parameters are met, that we have to work together in a transaction for the common goal of everyone involved. This is just a little snippet that I wanted to share because it really struck such a chord with me last week. I couldn't believe, especially this day and age, our industry had really gone down a path of that nature. And I think what's more interesting to me is that in this particular instance, this person just retired from full-time agency. You would have thought that someone that was as seasoned probably wouldn't be that emotional with regards to something that may be a personal transaction or something of that nature, but it really can get the best of us. So just little snippet is to make sure that though you are emotional because it's something that is so pure, you might be raising your family in this, it might be an investment, this could be an offset of your stock portfolio or something of that nature. The common goal is to make sure that you always have sound advice from a trusted source that can be your soundboard, to make sure that you are actually providing or making decisions, I should say, without the emotional value involved. And it's not to say that that common decision won't come with emotion involved, but you're trying to make sure that the emotion isn't the decision factor of whatever you're doing. And some might say, well, Steve, this is why we hire a real estate professional. This is why we do this. Not only that, if you're a buyer and seller looking in this marketplace, make sure you're working with an agent that is the exact same way, that understands that they don't want an emotional person involved. They want somebody that's going to be solid, that can negotiate, because there is very little inventory in this marketplace. Buyers are very particular in the product that they're looking for. And when they find something, they really want to try and make it happen. I think the difference is to make sure that that agent helps you move the transaction along so that you're moving towards a close of escrow, negotiates on your best behalf, and is honest with you at the same time when they tell you that you're overzealous with your request, or, hey, that's really outside of market conditions at this time. And that's really rare in our industry, because the honesty and the fear factor from an agent side, the honesty has gone away and the fear factor has increased because they're so afraid that they may lose something. That scarcity type mentality. I'd appreciate some comments and let me know your thoughts on what you think, kind of how the times have changed. I've been doing this a while. My father's been involved in the industry for over 60 years. I learned from him and had a great mentor that brought me along in this industry, and might be old school, to be honest with you. But the old school mentality strikes a nerve today with me, especially because, how do you say that, a handshake was an agreement back in the day? That would be very difficult to get done in today's society. In the litigious world that we're in, we provide contracts and things of that nature. But when we negotiate these deals to purchase a new home, we have to make sure that we remove that emotion so that we can always have the common goal for, if you're buying, that home becomes yours and you get that key at the closing. Or if you're selling, that you've sold it for the amount that you think is fair for the marketplace and the condition of that home, and you've been happy with how you've been serviced that entire time. And that's really, really difficult sometimes, because there's a lot of people's opinions and a lot of vendors that all have to operate together collectively to make up the perfect puzzle of a real estate transaction. So if I provided any value for you, I would love some feedback, and stay tuned. But this is kind of a short little snippet, and I'm kind of going to mix it up every single month so that we do this. I have new interviewers coming in, but I wanted to share some different sites of just my side of what goes on a day-to-day operation in my industry that a lot of people I don't think share. They don't understand the other side of really what's going on in the real estate industry, real estate transaction. And so I look forward to kind of bringing you those stories, providing different information that might help you if you're buying, selling, or if you're an agent that's looking to start a career or already in our industry.